We are a specialized agency focusing solely on Google Ads for service businesses. I started the business in 2021 after a redundancy from Virgin Atlantic. So I was working in-house at Virgin Atlantic and Virgin Holidays within the marketing team, doing a whole host of things, CRM, retail marketing, and got let go, and had always had this idea brewing to work by myself. And the agencies we were working with, I wasn't particularly excited by, and I felt like there was a real gap there. So I started Bulk DMS and became very busy very quickly doing lots of different bits and pieces, SEO, content, Google Ads, Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, and realized quite soon that whilst I was busy, I wasn't going to be able to help people how they needed to be helped and service the market correctly if I was doing everything for everyone. So sat down one day and took a look at everything that we did and put it into a matrix of where we were making the most impact on businesses and small businesses, what we were enjoying the most, and also what was doing the best for the business, and everything pointed towards Google Ads. So since then, we cut away everything else that we did and we focused on just doing one thing and trying to do that one thing better than anyone else. Our first point of call is always to assess the quality of the traffic. So we audit lots of accounts per week, and the very first thing we're always looking for is the alignment between what somebody is searching for and then the ad that you're showing them. We're looking for what's known as a message match, so making sure that when somebody types in their pain point and the thing that they're suffering with as a consumer, the solution that we're providing is relevant to that. And it's crazy when you see how many people are just getting this first step wrong, and there's misalignment between the two. So that's our first point of call, because otherwise you're paying for traffic that isn't relevant to the solution that you're trying to serve. Once we've got that down, we then go further down the funnel. We look, right, okay, somebody's searching for something, we're serving them an ad that is relevant to their pain point. Are we sending them to the right place? And again, a lot of the time you'll find that people have that alignment between the first two, and then the third one, they're sort of throwing them into a site that doesn't feel relevant to their pain point. And you need that message match to make a seamless transaction and make people feel like you're offering the right solution to the problem that they're facing as a consumer. After that, if we then don't see that people are generating leads, they're getting the right traffic to the right place with the right ads, then we'll start to look at more cosmetic things like how the landing page is laid out, the ad copy, the form on the landing page, the imagery on the landing page, and ultimately if the industry is the right fit. But initially, we're looking for making sure that those 3 points people are flowing through without anything too jarring happening. Always to be ruthlessly simple. So, and that's not to undermine the work and the effort that goes into our work. It's that I actually think it's harder to make something simple than it is to be complicated or to have everything in it. So campaigns that sort of try and focus on all things at once, it's easy to include everything. It's harder to predict what things you can remove and still get the best result. So we'll always be looking first at understanding whether the industry feels like the right fit for the channel that we use, which is Google Ads. Google notoriously has very expensive traffic, and it is one of the most expensive platforms that small businesses could get onto. But there is also a reason for that, and that's because the traffic is high intent. Somebody is saying, we have this problem and I'm searching for a solution for it. And so you're paying to meet the person at the time where they are experiencing the pain point and looking for a provider. So the way that we do that initially is we're looking for a ratio between what the traffic costs and what the service value is. And really in a perfect world, there would be a perfect balance between this traffic is in line with the value that the service receives. So for instance, when we work with clients where they have a low click price but a high return rate or a high average order value, that's a really big green flag for us. Whereas other industries, other service industries may have an overinflated click price and you can be paying 10, 20, 30 pounds per click, and then the service is still not worth that much. So we're looking for a disproportionate ratio between the click price and then the price of the service to make sure that actually before we build anything out, we need it to make sense financially for the business. And we're always ruthlessly honest with clients if we don't think that it's the right fit when we run those calculations. And I think a lot of people in the industry will run ads for anyone depending on what sector they're in and believe that Google Ads work and paid advertising works for anybody. And I think they're doing themselves a disservice as well as the client, because it's difficult to work with clients that you're not getting good results for. So that is a really important stage for us. And we're all super trained up in making sure that we can identify a industry that is going to perform well. Once we've got that confidence between us and the client that this is the right industry and they are the right client to be running ads, and their business is also in the right position to be running ads and can take these leads and follow up with them properly. We would then start to build out the campaign. And as I say, we try and only go for the highest intent keywords where people are actually searching for a service provider, making sure that we're not overcomplicating anything along the way. And overcomplication can work in the beginning, and historically complicated accounts have performed. And I think that's where you see a lot of super complex paid advertising accounts. But in today's day and age where the machine needs as much data as possible, consolidation is usually quite a good idea, and bringing everything into one or two campaigns with fewer ad groups, so that machine learning can ultimately find the people that are right rather than you having to physically do it yourself. Then we will, in most scenarios, build a landing page out. So we work out the campaign and build out the keywords that we're going to run so that we know what kind of traffic's going to be driven, and then we'll build a page to match that. So we'll design the landing page, the imagery on the landing page, the form on the landing page, and anything else that goes with that. We have leverage using Heyflow and also What Converts. And I think the combination of the two is quite deadly. So we use Heyflow to design interactive forms and have tested that across lots of different accounts and have seen astounding results when we've changed how we ask questions and capture content. So when a user comes to the site, I believe that if you meet them with a call to action that is asking immediately for personal details, not only are you creating a block in that they feel like they're not going to get a relevant response from the company, but also by asking the message field, you're creating a psychological block where they then have to think. And ultimately, good web design and good paid advertising is preventing any friction between the point of searching or finding the company and then inquiring. As soon as you create a message box, people start to think, what is it that I put in this message box? Do I need to say when I need this service? Do I need to give details? And suddenly the user's asking themselves questions, and a lot of the time they're going to reach dead ends. It's going to create this friction point and almost like this fight or flight scenario where people quite often will just click away. So instead of making people work, we use the interactive flows to make it super easy and ask them questions that are really easy for them to answer. So for instance, we were working with a really big asbestos removal client that works with garage demolition and garage roof replacement. And we figured out by speaking to their sales team that actually once that lead comes through, they only ask them a set amount of questions anyway. There's only 3 or 4 questions they can ask to be able to price it. So all projects that come in fall into a variation of what the answers to those questions were. So we created close-ended questions, 2 option close-ended questions where they were really easy to answer. You could answer them within a split second, and we didn't ask anything that you wouldn't know you wouldn't have to go out and look at your garage or look at the project to answer these questions. And the completion rate was a lot higher. And what it also then allowed what allowed their sales team to be able to do is when they were then calling up the lead, so the lead would come through Heyflow and they'd be notified by email, rather than having to call up and ask those qualifying questions and sort of take the time to do that, but also then more time of the customers. They could call them up and they'd have every bit of information they knew from those 4 questions just to be able to quote them on the phone there and then. So they could call them up and say, hey, I saw your inquiry. It's going to be £2,500. And they would do that in an instant. So we were saving a lot of time. And we were also making the users that were landing through the paid ads feel like they were going to get something relevant back. Because when we're asking these questions, you know that the company has all the details possible to give you a quote that is accurate based on your specific needs. So that personalization of the sales process is something that we haven't looked back from since we've started using it. Now, where that then combines with What Converts, which is our lead tracking system and offline conversion tracking system, is that all of our clients have access to this lead tracking software where all of the leads that come through Heyflow are automatically put into an online dashboard where they can go into their leads and see the answers that they have from Heyflow, and then they can mark the quality of the lead for us. So our clients are giving us real-time feedback on leads on the same day. If they quote the lead, they enter the quote value, and if they sell the lead, they enter the sales value, and then that data is fed back into Google Ads. So we can optimize on real revenue data compared to actually just optimizing on lead volume. So not only were we then getting more leads in the front end from using Heyflow, but then those leads were able to be enriched and then fed back into the system, allowing us to optimize further. And that sort of machine between using Google Ads into Heyflow, into What Converts, back into Google Ads, and feeding the system all the time as this account has sort of skyrocketed from that. I think we went from spending £2,000 a month. The client now spends £17,000 a month and generates 700 leads a month. Each lead is sort of worth, the average order value is £2,700. So it's a 7-8 figure pipeline for them over the course of a year. The tools that we now invest in, especially Heyflow and What Converts, mean that our clients get the best results and ultimately stay with us for longer. So whilst there's a short-term high investment there, our clients are more satisfied, stay with us for longer and do better out of their campaigns. So it's difficult because it takes a long time to learn a new software and a new tool. And especially now, anyone can create a tool with AI, and there's lots of wrappers of other AI tools. So it's a bit of a minefield out there at the minute. But the only thing you can do is test, implement, test, and then kill your darlings as soon as possible, and get rid of the ones that you think are cool just because they're fancy in the top end, and look at actually what's driving results and real revenue both for you and your clients. We always like to report on revenue. Obviously, that requires clients keeping their lead platform up to date. So sometimes it's not always possible. But then if you don't have the option to use real revenue data, then you want to go one step up and actually look at lead volumes, conversion rate, and cost per conversion. The metrics that don't matter, that lots of people report on heavily and are used to fluff up reports, and also I feel confuse some clients, is clicks, impressions, click-through rate, search impression share. Yes, they are good indicators of football ads managers to get a feel for how the campaign is doing. But I think the more business owners we speak to, the more we realize that it's frustrating for them to receive reports that they don't understand. But that's in platform. There's also a lot of off-platform metrics we look at. I mean, one element of Heyflow that we really enjoy is the fact that we can analyze drop-off rates across the flow, and we can also A/B test natively within the platform. So it's a really cool way of working out in which order you should add questions and tweaking really small bits of the flow that end up having maybe a 1 or 2% difference in the completion rate. But when you scale that up over tens of thousands of pounds of ad spend, then suddenly actually the end result is millions or hundreds of thousands in different for clients each year. So those really sort of granular changes make a big difference. And I think it's something that not enough tools offer. So we've actually have tested with alternatives to Heyflow, and it was something that we felt restricted by. But when you're putting volume through it, those small 0.5%, 1% differences actually can have a huge real life impact to business and business owners. Depending on the size of the client, I think a lot of the time we're managing some smaller accounts, and it's very difficult to run the kind of tests that we'd like to, because we just don't have the budget to be able to experiment like we would. With bigger accounts, it's picking one variable at a time, and the variable that we think is going to have the most difference, and quite simply running them side by side until we're 100% confident that the results are significant. I think a lot of the time it's very easy to make a call on an A/B test quite early on without letting it run too long, because you have seen initial signs that it's going to swing one way. But I think a lot of the time with smaller accounts, people aren't letting these tests run for as long as they should be run, and putting enough users and traffic through the test. So I suppose in summary, it's to test one variable at a time and pick the thing that you think is going to have the biggest difference, rather than focusing on small things. Focus on something significant. Something I see with businesses that come to us with lead generation issues is they're trying to do too many things at once. That comes from, I think, in the past when there were fewer marketing channels and those channels had less options within them, it was okay to sort of try to cover everything. But now, I mean, even if you look at social media, you've got Facebook, you've got Instagram, you've got TikTok, then you've got Pinterest, and you've got LinkedIn as well. So that's a huge channel to try and cover as a small business, and then to try and cover every single platform and be a master in all of them is going to mean that you're going sort of a mile wide and an inch deep, whereas I think it's much better to go a mile deep and an inch wide on one particular platform or one particular thing. That's not to say not to invest in other channels, not to say put all your eggs in one basket, but I don't think that you should try to be doing every single thing at once. So it might be that you do social media alongside paid advertising, but you pick one paid advertising platform, Google, say, or Facebook, and then you also pick one type of social media platform. And we definitely suggest that people still invest in SEO. So I think sometimes PPC and Google Ads and SEO are pitched against each other, and it's one versus the other. And you hear people be quite a delicate subject sometimes, and people swear by doing one versus the other. Whereas I think a good, healthy balance, and you can learn from each other as well. I think the main thing I would say is to fix it and optimize it before you scale it, because a lot of the time we see clients who mention that they need more leads, they need bigger lead flow into the business, they need to get more sales, so they need more leads. They're very rarely the clients that they are getting more leads already than some of our highest performing clients. Our highest performing clients don't always have the highest lead volume. They've just got a really good system in the back end to be able to convert those leads. So they've got a system and a process whereby somebody is in charge of picking up the lead, contacting it quickly, getting back to people in a good time frame with the right message, and actually ultimately closing those leads. They're the ones that perform best. The ones that have more leads and feel like they need more leads and more leads and more, they're usually the ones that have a leaky bucket, and they're sort of compensating with more leads for a bad system on the back end. So I'd encourage people to make sure that before they scale something, they're scaling something efficient, because scaling something inefficient just causes more inefficiencies. And we're doing a lot of audits at the minute, and I think almost every account is getting something fundamental wrong within their settings. So, and it's not their fault. Google is actively encouraging people to take steps and click buttons that don't end up with more money in their pocket than they do Google. So Google use gamification within the system and traffic light systems and scoring systems to make you feel like the changes you're making as somebody that isn't native to advertising productive. And you can finish setting up a campaign feeling like Google's told you that this is the best campaign in the world that's ever been set up, because they're guiding you to set it up in a way that you want it to be set up. So one of the biggest things we look for is making sure that partners and networks are turned off. In 99.9 or 0.5% of the cases, they should be turned off, the display network and the search network. And it's Google's way of selling real estate and stock that it can't sell to anybody else. And they ultimately have less control over where that traffic goes. So I would untick them in almost all cases. Then under location settings, there's a sneaky setting there called location or interest rather than presence. So ultimately means that it can serve your ads to people that are interested in your location rather than people that are physically present there. So people that have that setting enabled correctly ultimately are showing their ads to people that aren't anywhere near their business and can't physically purchase from them. Again, it's a good way of Google serving budget to people, serving ads to people that it otherwise can't sell. I'd also say that probably the biggest flaw that we see is lack of conversion tracking, and that's a tip that's sort of widely circulated in the space, is that if you can't measure something, you can't improve it. So contrary to belief, you can have a campaign that is wildly successful through with no conversion tracking. You can set something up that earns hundreds of thousands of pounds, millions of pounds without any tracking whatsoever. But what you can't do is improve, and you're going to grow frustrated trying to improve it, because if you can't allocate results back to what you did to achieve those results, you're stuck where you are. So it is a very technical setup. It's actually something that I don't do myself and never have. I've always outsourced it to people that are more technically able and have better technical ability than me. So I just urge people to get that set up correctly by somebody that knows how. And then you can start to see which locations, which keywords, which campaigns, which ad groups, which devices are performing best. And you can double down on what is working, and you can strip back the things that aren't working. And then you can feel like you are progressing rather than just stuck wherever you started. I think there's been changes within the platform and also outside of the platform that have made things more difficult, especially for small advertisers. And it's going to only become more difficult as control is taken away from the advertiser. So there's a lot of talk in the Google ad space at the minute of a keywordless future where we're being pushed more towards using AI and AI solutions. I think that most of the people who are in the space and handling accounts every day, similar sized accounts or similar industry accounts, small business accounts like ours, would also say that the AI tools up to standard yet. And ultimately, we're being forced to test them more and more, and our control is being stripped away. So I think at this stage, a lot of people think it's less necessary to work with a professional, because Google's going to allow anybody to run a great campaign with the flick of a switch. But I think the power then goes to the people and the advertisers that are working with someone, or themselves to harness the system and understand it and point it in the right direction. So that's been a huge challenge and will continue to be so, I believe. The biggest shift is Google pushing us towards more AI and more automation and taking away control. So at the minute, we still have a lot of control over what we show for, and albeit being stripped away, we can guide the algorithms and guide the campaigns in the right place. And what it's going to do is end up putting more emphasis on what happens post click. So at the minute, if you're a Google Ads manager, a lot of the beliefs are that you can make the biggest changes to the account pre-click. So to the bidding strategies, to the keywords, to the ad copy, influencing those on-platform metrics. Whereas actually it's going to switch more towards the content that you send people to. Not only is it going to be reading more from the destination and informing the ads based on the landing page, but also your page is going to need to be better at converting people. So anything that you can do to give users a more seamless experience and reduce friction and ultimately solve their pain points, the more likely you are to succeed.